My opponent and I agree that lobbying for hate crime recognition of sexual orientation and gender identity, educating youth, and reaching out to those affected by discrimination is important. However, it is essential that the battle for same-sex marriage remain at the forefront of the queer rights movement. My opponent argues that it is not prudent for the queer community to fight for same-sex marriage because the queer community needs to work to eradicate the social stigmas surrounding queer people. First, she argues that same-sex marriage alienates people like youth and transgender people. However, marriage affects both of these people. Tonight, at the University of Mary Washington, was a keynote performance at my school's Queer Community Celebration, and Andrea Gibson, an amazing award-winning poet whom all of the viewers should look up, shared with the group a perspective that she has on same-sex marriage. Andrea was a preschool teacher, and after hearing one of her female students tell another female student that they couldn't marry because it was illegal, Andrea realized that the kids were equating non-legal to criminal. To be young and to think that queer people are criminal is dangerous, and Andrea argues that it contributes to suicide and depression among queer youth who think that they are inherently criminals by liking people of the same sex or gender. To legalize gay, as the expression says, would improve youth's perception of themselves and would help the queer community to educate youth about these issues. In terms of trans people, this does not mean that we police their genders. Instead, it acknowledges that they have incongruent sexes and genders, which makes them transgender, and it makes heterosexual marriage for those whose legal sexes and are disconnected from their internal genders legal. And, according to research done by Zhao, Hoffman, Gorin, and Swab in 1995, most FTMs are primarily attracted to women, and this would actually help most FTMs get married if they choose to do so. My opponent does not recognize that part of what is changing the polls regarding same-sex marriage approval, which is helping push hate crime legislation and making it more socially acceptable to be queer, is because of the social momentum that the fight for same-sex marriage creates due to the emotion that it hits. Ending the same-sex marriage debate would bring all of that to a halt. It would simply not make sense for the queer community to stop the focus of the queer rights movement on same-sex marriage and put it on all of these other issues, like hate crime legislation, educating youth, and reaching out, so much more difficult, when in fact, lobbying for same-sex marriage legalization would actually affect all of these places.